A few days ago, it was widely reported that men and women of the Nigerian police force took to the streets in Osun State in southwest Nigeria in protest against poor service and living conditions. That would not be the first time, and such incidences go so far as to amplify a particular sense of despondency among the veterans regarding how they have been treated by the authorities, and most importantly underlines the thinking of government about preservation of law and order and the protection of lives and property in Nigeria. Again, the case of not paying the security department allowance of Nigeria's retired military personnel have always stuck out like a sore thumb and easily elicits less than edifying commentary about the human rights records of successive Nigerian governments. Now, joining us to have a discussions are Dr. Roy Okhidievbie and Abiodun Durowaye Herberts for us to look at the plight of the military veterans in Nigeria. I want to say good morning to you, gentlemen, for joining us here on the morning show. I'll start off by asking that in 2022, should we be having this problem? And more importantly, looking at the way things have actually deteriorated in terms of security, is it high time we begin to pay close attention and not just pay lip service to this issue about servicemen and their remuneration?
Very much for the opportunity. We always appreciate when the press come into play and give people platforms to be able to express and vent their inner angers. Now, if you look at the reasoning behind coming out to protest, you will be discussing about breakdown of communication. That is one of the key issues that make people to come out. Because if there is appropriate communication, then definitely the handicaps to deliver would have been properly communicated and there will be an understanding. So in the situation we found ourselves, discussions have been ongoing. The government itself has been instituted and properly positioned with military veterans that are supposed to understand the value of the veterans community. And our shock is that there is always this breakdown of communication, this lack of empathy and irresponsibility to the offices certain key stakeholders hold to deliver the constitutional value to the veteran community.
All right. In light of all that you've highlighted now, we understand that this agitation on the part of ex-servicemen began in May 2022 thereabouts, following an exclusion from the security department allowance. Could you speak to some of the measures that have been taken so far to engage the authorities and Defense Ministry on your demands and grievances since then?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians and distinguished members of the veterans community. Actually, like you had rightly pointed out, we started this agitation in May 2020, and by writing a letter to the official letter to the Honorable Minister of Defense, who happens to be one of us, and whose primary responsibility is our constituency as well. So we wrote to him about the exclusion of some of us who were retired earlier from the debarment allowance. And so we were invited to his office. I was part of that meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, and there was a resolution. And thereafter, a 9-man committee was set up to look into the grievances. And of course, after submitting the report, the Honorable Minister looked at the report and did his own, put his own input and then forwarded to the President, who is also one of us. And recently, we eventually got an approval to be included. Because what we had earlier was that the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, while in office, was the one who dusted the proposal that his predecessor, actually worked out for those that should be entitled to this debarment allowance, and then decided that only those who retired from November 2017 till date are entitled to this allowance. And what is debarment allowance? Debarment allowance is an allowance payable to every retired military veterans. As you're retiring, to debar you, it is to encourage you to set up some businesses that will make you independent, and you don't need to go cap in hands begging other people, to fend for your living. And so it is to debar us also from using the skills that we acquired in the course of our service against the state, against our country. And so if that is the definition, why then do you need to exclude the larger percentage or the larger part of the veterans and claim that only those who retired from 2017 till date? That's unfair. These are people who fought the Civil War. As we speak now, there's one, the oldest surviving World War II and Civil War veteran in Gombe. This man was excluded. Hitherto, they were excluded. He is part of us. How can you reason that way? We had the same training with these people that you claim are due for this debarment allowance. We had the same training. How about those who went, to civil war and fought to ensure that this country remain what it is today? And we want to deny them. And so at the end of the day, we thank God that the president graciously gave an approval of about 134 billion naira to be paid to us. Now, the minister invited us to break the news after officially communicating with us. And then when we had this meeting, what we're expecting to hear from the Honorable Minister is, look, I have done my job, and then the modality of payment will be worked out by the relevant authorities, right? And then it was not what we expected. Now we're hearing different, different things from those in authority that we will have to be verified before we are being paid this money. And the approval says that both living and dead veterans are entitled to this money. Now, last year, December, and January this year, we had a nationwide protest. It culminated here in January 5th. And what was it all about? There are a series of demands we made. The unpaid 24 months of arrears, which was approved in 2019, it wasn't paid to us until we came out for protest. Then there's this issue of the SDA that had just gotten approval from Mr. President, and we want to thank him for that. Then there are issues of payment disparity. There are disparities between the ranks. You imagine a brigadier general, what a major general is taking on retirement is almost 3 times what a brigadier general is taking. And it cuts across. And we are saying that there should be, the gap should be closed. It shouldn't be wide, it shouldn't be as wide as it is. So we also have the issues of the medically boarded veterans who recently, a policy that was, the government introduced, shortchanged them, as it were. These are some of the issues that we brought forward, and when we were not listened to, we had to come out and protest. So as it is today, we are asking questions. If the minimum wage, which has been paid to us in 3 tranches, leaving 1 tranche, if there was no verification before the implementation of this payment of the backlog of 24 months, why are you now asking us to come for verification before this money the debarment allowance is paid to us? It would be assumed that you had presented a figure to Mr. President that so number of people are entitled to this, and this is what we think will cover for the payment. Then, if you want a verification exercise, that should have come first before you go ahead to get an approval from Mr. President. So we see this as a delay tactics, and we can no longer wait. Now, by the end of September or by October, electioneering campaign will commence. And most of these political office holders will be asked to go back to their constituencies to converse for vote for their parties. Who are we going to talk to? And we have the opportunity right now because the president is one of us. The Minister of Defense is one of us. The National Security Advisor is one of us. This is the ample opportunity we have for them to settle this issue and not leave it for an incoming administrations. So this is the crop of the matters, and this is why we are here, and it is a shame that we had to come on air to begin to say some of these things we are saying. This should have been settled in-house.
All right, Mr. Roy Okhidievbie, if I were to pick it up from where Mr. Abiodun just left off, some claim, because he said that the president and several key cabinet members are one of you, but some claim that these people are far detached. Some are saying that these people are a little bit too comfortable to be able to feel the plights of the many. And some are saying that they are far removed and distant away from several veterans that at the moment it is difficult for them to probably push as hard as you expected.
Oh, hello, Mr. Roy.
All right, let's get back to you, Mr. Abiodun. You spoke about the fact that the president is one of you, if you can actually hear me. And you also spoke about that several key people in this government are ex-servicemen. And some are saying that probably maybe complacency on the side of those people, owing to the fact that maybe they are a little bit too comfortable where they are, not to understand the plights of veterans, or probably they're very, very detached from the veterans to be able to pick up this course and run with it. Talk to us about this.
Absolutely so. Completely detached. That's the words. I mean, how would you? I mean, we had this nationwide protest last year, like I said earlier, in December. It took place in states across the 6 geopolitical zones. And the climax was here in Abuja, where went to the Ministry of Finance, and then there was no coming in and going out. The same thing we did at the Ministry of Defense. That's our home. And so, I mean, no one should claim ignorance of the fact that, these things happened. And so it is unfortunate that those you mentioned, or those you made reference to, would claim that they do not, hear about all that happened. These are people who worked under you, who you commanded during the Civil War, and then they have issues that has to do with their welfare and well-being, and you claim ignorance of it. It's unfortunate. And this is where we find ourselves today. And let me tell you one of the reasons why we seem to be in this kind of situation in this country. Military veterans are the most responsible. And of course, that the military as an institution is the most disciplined. Now, I'll tell you one of the reasons why we're having these issues. Come to the Ministry of Defense. 75% of staff at the Ministry of Defense are civilians. And go to the top hierarchy, the positions held. How on earth would you have the Director of Joint Service as a civilian at the Ministry of Defense? A civilian. Where are our retired generals? Where are our retired senior officers who knows the in and out of the military? Now you put someone who has little or no idea about regimentation, about the military, and you put that person as the Director of Joint Service. Joint Service, the Navy, Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. They're all there. And you see, we have a situation where in this ministry you have no desk for veterans. go to the naval headquarters, the army headquarters, the Air Force headquarters, the Ministry of Defense, and others. There is no desk, and I mean to say, there is no office occupied by a veteran. We are the one wearing the shoes, and we know where it pinches. If we don't have a representation in these places, these key places, how do you think our issues will be addressed? Our welfare cannot be addressed adequately. So unless you put round peg in a round hole, we'll still continue to, go round and round.
All right, let's see if we've got Mr. Okhidievbie back. If you can hear me, could you please just indicate, and I can proceed with you.
Yeah,
all right,
I can hear
okay,
you.
yes.
Thank
Talking
you.
about addressing the issues, as mentioned earlier, there has been a demand for a verification process from the authorities. And we understand that there has been some kickback from ex-servicemen in this light. But then again, judging by past occurrences of ghost workers, the bloated workforce situations, which really do exist, surely this should be a valid process, isn't it? Why are we seeing a resistance to this process? And perhaps you could help us understand this better.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry about this slight hiccup on the network. Now, let me first apologize to Nigerians that we are here bothering their airtime, their airspace, their time with our complaints. We are very sorry about this, and we don't take the opportunity for granted. Now, if you look at the reasons for verification at this digital time, now, if you want to do verification for civil servants, you may be right, because certain avenues for recruitment in those days has been through manual platforms. But when you talk about military veterans, before you onboard on the Military Pension Board payroll, you must have retired from the military. And there is a discharge certificate issued to you. So when you are moved, your data is moved from different units onto the Military Pension Board portal. They know your army number, they know where you served before, they know your years of service, the rank at which you exited. They have computed the amount to be paid to you monthly for pension. So where I think they need to do verification is the living and the dead. Because you may want to say, oh, you are still paying pension to a late veteran, because the law does not permit that. When you pass on as a veteran, your pension ceases to come into your account. So if they want to do that with the current BVN and synchronization, I don't understand why a bank that can detect when certain amount of monies enter certain people's accounts cannot easily flag when a veteran that is late is receiving monies. Or how can a civilian be onboarded on the Military Pension Board payroll? So all of these things are just gimmicks to just buy time. And if you look at the reasonableness in our verification, they ask people now to come from where you are if you have any problem to Abuja. A veteran that the monthly pension is about 30,000 naira is asked to come to Abuja if he has any challenge. There is no separation of powers. There is no allocation of command between the states. So if you look at all these challenges, you will not even want to bother a military veteran with any of all these things, because definitely monies have been approved. Definitely those that are late, because we call for burial parties. We have consummated plans already to establish state chapters, and we have succeeded and onboarded state chapters, even within states that are at large expanse. We don't even want a veteran to travel within a state for his safety and his health purpose. So if you want to do verification, why not even relate with the bodies whom you relate with to identify the late veterans? So it's a shame that we don't enjoy digital advantage to achieve all of these things.
All right, Mr. Okhidievbie, please help me understand the way forward right now, because I want to find out from you. Your body has tried numerous avenues to reach a resolution or a consensus as it were. Now that it has not worked, some are saying that probably legal action by taking this matter to the industrial court might be the way out. Is that option on the table?
For now, that option is not on the table at all. I mean, let's look at it this way. If a wealthy man denies his household of their meals, the best weapon to employ is for the siblings to gather themselves and stay at the gate. He obviously will be expecting guests. This is a wealthy man who is very influential in the society. And I'm sure that wealthy man wouldn't want that embarrassment. And he obviously wouldn't want his integrity.
But Mr. Duruwaye, if I were to stop you in your tracks,
if nothing is done,
correct me if I'm wrong, is this what the entitlements you're fighting for? Is it a right or a privilege?
Well, it is our right, it is constitutional that we be paid this allowance. It is our right. It is constitutional. And like I was saying earlier, if by the end of next week, we do not have a way forward, by September, the last week in September, the Ministry of Defense is going to be our shelter, where we will come with our mats. That's our home, and nobody can deny us of that. We will be at the Ministry of Defense like we did in January with our mats until these issues are addressed. We have no other place to go. So if those in authority are listening to us now, the earlier these issues are resolved, the better for all of us.
All right. In light of all that has been highlighted, just to state it out quite specifically, we are well aware that there is a threat to embark on a national strike and ground activities at the Defense Ministry. But could you tell us a bit more about how they...
Protest,
okay,
not strike.
Okay, my apologies for that. Thanks for clarifying that. Could you just tell us so far, with the amount of information being put out in the media so far, how has this been received by the constituted authority so far? Just so we know where your communication has basically developed, what point has developed to so far.
Is the question for me or for Roy?
Let's have Mr. Roy take this, please.
Okay, thank you very much. The issue is communication is a two-way activity. If I speak, you hear, you understand, and you respond. Now, in this our dilemma that we found ourselves, the people at the helms of affairs, they have paid deaf ears to the cries of veterans. And you know, the funny thing about it is this. The direct responsible offices and officers, they are also part of the veteran community. I don't know what we will do next year when there's another dispensation. Because if we are speaking to our community members right now, we have written letters. Do you know how to write a letter and it's not replied? You get your acknowledgement copy. You carry the acknowledgement copy and you write a reminder. Then we had to go back. See, the discipline is amazing. We had to go back to merge together all veteran communities, all veterans of commissioned officer to veterans of non-commissioned officer. Look, the veterans that are even in the commissioned officer cadre, they are senior officers, generals, admirals in the Navy, commodores, and all that in the Air Force. And they are talking to their juniors. people they must have trained, mentored, and commissioned and recommended for promotion. They are talking to them that this thing you are neglecting is affecting us. You know, it was a time when I saw the retired members of Nigeria on social media, and I approached them. I said, look, I want to be a part of this. And I discovered that all that we are asking for are in the Constitution. They are captured in the budget, you know. But you see, this distraction, let me say something here this morning. By the time we started having coup d'etat in Nigeria, it is because the military felt that the civilians in government were not delivering governance. Imagine that, and they take over government and they deliver governance to their own interest, and because of world and global pressure, they hand over back to the civilians. After a while, it became juicy. Every military government just want to come over and take over. Then it was global pressure to cease practicing coup d'etat. Now, the military men that are retired go into government and still institute this oppression on the military, which is the core defense system of the country. And you are saying you are not culpable for practicing and encouraging terrorism? I read about terrorism. I know about global terrorism practice. I know what encourages terrorism, especially when you disable the opportunity of a country to defend itself. Local governments are paying taxes to the government. They are also paying to terrorists right now. Children cannot go to school. People cannot do wedding. A wedding in a village of Nigeria today, you have to pay bail money to the terrorists. Even for burial, they have kidnapped all the people going for a burial and left the corpse. So you can imagine how you use your governance opportunity to oppress the military, which is the active hand. Because when I'm serving, I'm looking at what will happen to me when I leave. So many generals are being tried today for diversion of funds.
Just so that we do not misunderstand what you're saying, are you confirming to us or saying that up till now you're yet to receive any response to your grievances so far? That's what we want clarity on.
There are no responses. The responses that the community of veterans want to receive now is the alert in our account. That is the only response, because if you are not talking to us, we assume you are working. Let's see the results, because wherever you are, in your office, in the Ministry of Defense, everywhere in the presidency, they are collecting money from government for that government office they are holding. They are also getting alert from our pressures. The one we did in January, were they not paid? Are they going to tell us that they did not get alert and they were paid? So if you want to show us that you got our messages, you see the deaths, you hear of the cry of admission, of medical conditions, then release the alerts. Let's see it. It has been approved.
All right, I want to say many thanks to the gentlemen here in the studio talking about Dr. Roy Okhidievbie and Mr. Biodun Duruwaye Habet for your time. We hope that this comes to a peaceful resolution sooner than later.